When we read or hear about scandals or scams like the Bernie Madoff scandal, don't we think how people could be so stupid? I will never fall into something like this. But have you ever thought that this is exactly what the victims of these scammers used to think? Because the truth is that everyone has a weakness that can be exploited? This sounds scary, doesn't it? Fortunately, it came through. Learn about the personal and psychological vulnerabilities that scammers manipulate. You can understand how they work and how to stay safe. This is what you will learn during the course of this summary, which will analyze the steps that scammers take. Chapter 1: The Power of Observation. When you are in a crowded place, do you ever find yourself looking around and making assumptions about who the people are? What do their lives look like? You may see a couple fighting and speculate about whether they are newlyweds or long-term partners on the verge of divorce. Small clues may encourage the belief that the person walking down the hall may be very important. You may find yourself speculating about his career. These can be fun little games we play with ourselves, but they also reveal an important truth about human nature. We pay a lot of attention to superficial cues, but we often refuse to delve deeper and learn much about a person. Why? Well, psychologist Jeffrey Simpson hypothesized that it's because getting too close to people can reveal uncomfortable truths. Even, or perhaps especially, when it comes to close relationships, the more we know about people, the more we are able to tell whether they might find us boring or whether they are being disingenuous towards us. This is painful to discover, so sometimes we unconsciously turn a blind eye to emotional signals that may give us a deeper understanding of another person. This was particularly true in one of Simpson's studies, in which couples were asked to watch video clips of each other discussing something they disagreed on as they watched. He asked each partner to write down their feelings and speculate on how their partner was feeling. Through this exercise, Simpson found that couples who were less successful at triggering each other's emotions or reading their partner's thoughts reported higher levels of happiness than those who could do so consistently. More precisely, it looks like it's upside down, right? Accurately reading someone's emotional state and identifying their weaknesses is crucial for occupier of trust. The case studies of Field are a prime example of this. In 2008, she went to see a psychologist after losing her job and her boyfriend at around the same time. She was feeling vulnerable, hurt, and confused. The psychologist has snapped. And that was before Deborah said a single word. His reading of body language enabled him to manipulate her into writing him a check for $27,000 under the mistaken belief that he, the expert, actually had his best interest at heart. Chapter 2: The Occupier Establishes Trust. There is more to the process of manipulating someone than simply identifying their weaknesses. Occupying works to gain the trust of his victim as well, as evidenced by the case of Deborah and her psychiatrist. If you have ever known someone whose presence can light up a room, and who seems to attract everyone to him with his charisma, almost magnetic, you already have a little taste of what this looks like. This is because these people have strong charisma, the ability to appear likable and trustworthy, and although this can often be used for good, as in the case of powerful leaders or motivational speakers, this skill can also be manipulated for the purpose of harming others. Take, for example, a woman named Joan, whom Kornikova interviewed while she was drafting it. This book, Joan fell in love with a man named. He seemed perfect in every way. He was attentive and kind, and he even helped Joan remodel her kitchen and take care of her sick grandmother, all out of his kind heart. All of these factors combined to prove to Joan that he must be a really good person and would not hurt her. But despite all this evidence, Junie couldn't shake the feeling that there was something strange or suspicious about Craig. He didn't have it. Friends or family, and his explanations for this were not entirely convincing. Then, when Joan tries to contact him at work, the office where he works has no idea who he is. As more and more holes in Crick's story appear, she soon realizes that her seemingly perfect boyfriend has spent 2 years charming her into believing a big lie. If you now find yourself wondering how this could happen, why do people fall for this trick? It might be useful to take a look at a study conducted by a psychologist. Lisa de Bruyn's research interests focus on the psychology of similarity and how occupiers use this to fake contact with their victims. I tested this through a study in which I asked participants to work together on a group project with a virtual teammate. Interestingly, their results showed that the project was likely to be more successful. If the virtual teammate's photo is changed to look like the participant, this proves that people are attracted to those they see as similar to them, and that they are more likely to trust people who have a lot in common with them. Don't we all like to enjoy meeting people who share our interests? But the point is that those in need know that similarity can be imitated for the purposes of manipulation. Often, in order to inspire a sense of trust, they will create a perception of false commonality by pretending to share someone else's interests or values. This can be surprisingly effective, because humans are often so subconsciously arrogant that after we learn that someone has the same taste as us, we automatically like or trust them a little more. And this is exactly where the danger begins. Chapter 3: The Classic Life of Fraudsters. We've all been stopped on the street by someone seeking to raise awareness about an issue, but if you're like most people, you probably try to pretend you don't see them and move on, because you know that if you take time out of your day to engage in conversations about an issue, you will probably feel compelled to do something about it. Most of us do not want to stop our busy lives to listen to an issue that does not concern us, nor do we want to do anything about it. Scammers also realize that one of their primary techniques to manipulate you is based on the understanding that if you can get people to agree earlier, such as pausing for a moment to hear what someone has to say, it is much easier to get them to agree to greater services in the future. This was proven by a study conducted at Stanford University in 1966, where researchers discovered that stay-at-home mothers were 30% more likely to spend 2 hours on the phone answering questions in a survey if we've previously agreed to take a moment, answering just a few questions. This is known as the next-in-the-door strategy, and it's what scammers use all the time. One of the best examples of this in practice came in 1900 AD, in the case of a newspaper advertisement that went viral. Back then, even with the limited technology of that era, an advertisement circulated saying that a Nigerian admiral was looking for American pen pals. This doesn't sound so bad, does it? The prince made quite a few pen pals pretty quickly, and then he made a request. Apparently, he mailed him only $4 for some rare jewelry from Nigeria. As you may have guessed, the gems never reached his pen pals, but significant sums of money did reach the prince as more victims of the scam and complaints increased. He finally asked the police to investigate the matter. Did you at least guess who this Nigerian prince was? Before I tell you, I invite you to listen to the summary of the book Suspicious Minds to learn how conspiracy theory affects our minds. Link in the description box. Well, the Nigerian prince was, in fact, only a 14-year-old American boy. He did it all for fun, as it turns out. This enterprising teen may have scammed a number of people out of $4, but his story shows you that once a scammer gets his foot in the door with a small request, he has the opportunity to go further and ask for more important things. They may also try another strategy like driving with an unreasonable request, then backing off until they find a smaller service that you're willing to commit to. One great example can be seen thus in the case of the English Lady Worcester, who held a charity auction in 1990 to support a cause. During the auction, she was contacted by a man she had never met or heard of before, and claimed to be a nobleman. This aroused her suspicions given that she was acquainted with other members of the English nobility, and he offered to have her come visit him at his home in Monaco. He was equally suspicious, and I wisely turned him down. However, for fear of appearing realistic, she accepted his checks of $4,000 for the statue, stating that she did not want to offend him by turning him down again. But as you probably guessed, the check was fake. which confirmed that all of this was part of a fraud that was aborted by the charm of that woman. Chapter 4: Occupiers play on the needs of their victims. Don't we all know people who think they look cool and confident, while the rest of the world laughs at them behind their backs? Of course, the main question on our minds is, who do they think they are submitting to? How come they don't see what they look like? But although we may not want to think about this, the truth is that this happens to us more often than I would like to admit. Because people do not always have the greatest power of self-realization. Scammers are experts at identifying our blind spots. Here's one example from 2012 of a very intelligent college professor. When he was 68 years old, this man, whose entire life was centered around the pursuit of knowledge and reason, fell in love with a photo of a beautiful model, which he saw on the internet. Although the two exchanged some instant messages, they never spoke on the phone. They did not see each other on Skype. He had no proof that she was real, yet despite all this, he immediately agreed to hop on a plane and meet her in Bolivia. The guy seems very naive, doesn't he? But don't forget that he may be smarter than you or me. He is a man of knowledge and knowledge. The important thing is that things did not go as planned. The first red flag came when he arrived and received word that the girl. She couldn't meet him because she had to go to an emergency photo shoot in Brussels. The second red world is strange how people can believe such a thing. She said that she left in such a hurry that she forgot her bag and asked him to bring it to her. If you've watched the documentary Imprisoned in Exile, you know the rest of the sad, inescapable story. Her missing bag was filled with 2 kilograms of cocaine, and the professor was arrested on drug smuggling charges. Now, the stock of this story might be online safety, but more appropriately, this may be for the development of preachers. Our blind spots, since the main reason this poor professor was deceived was because he was full of confidence. He never stopped wondering why a beautiful 30-year-old model was so interested in him. With a professor who is over 60, although confidence is a wonderful thing, and we all need a healthy dose of it, it is equally important that we recognize our failures and our self-awareness so that we can prevent people from taking advantage of us. Because we may not know much about human psychology or how it can apply to us, but scammers know a lot about that. So, if a woman is interested in you, it seems very clear, my friend, that you are not his type. So he was humble and cautious, and wondered about the real reason behind this, and the same message is also for you, ma'am. Chapter 5: How do the occupiers deceive their victims? If you think about scandals like the burn-off scams we mentioned earlier, it might be helpful to change the questions you ask, because instead of asking why are people stupid enough to fall for this, we should say what makes people attracted towards scammers. The simplest answer is that people are attracted to the illusion of success. Although it makes sense, of course, that I'm attracted to people who appear charming and successful, the root of this reversal is in reality. Deeper than we think, our eagerness to believe in the station of the needy stems from the fact that people are naturally inclined to be optimistic about the future, sometimes very optimistic. For this reason, scammers are often referred to as trustworthy scammers because they are able to take advantage of our inherent optimism and confidence and exploit them for their own gain. A personality. A psychology survey conducted in the 1990s confirmed this when it found that all college students, they overestimate by 10 to 20% how happy they will be in the next semester, including their estimates of how well their grades will go, how well their relationships will go, and the amount of positive experiences they will have. This desire to believe that things will work out for us is one of the most beautiful human traits, but it is also why we fall prey to manipulators. In 1889, William Miller asked each of his friends to donate $10 to his business as startup capital. He told them that he could guarantee that his project would generate a 10% weekly return on their investment. Of course, his friends all signed up, and many of them even invited others to join the get-rich-quick scheme. And because they trust their friend, they were eager to make more money. They had no idea that these investments never existed in the first place. Instead, Miller would use each new donation to pay the previous round of investors' weekly returns. His only goal was to maintain this scheme as long as possible by recruiting a new batch of donors. Chapter 6: Our adherence to some of our beliefs can be harmful to us. I think you're starting to whisper to yourself, can every good character trait lead you into a happy trap? Starting to scare us? Unfortunately. That's right, my friends. All of humanity's qualities of love, compassion, generosity, and hope can be manipulated by those who seek to misuse them. The same applies to our commitment to some of our beliefs. This is because our beliefs are something very personal to us. And we're not excited to talk about it. Fraudsters know this, and often use it to their advantage, on the principle that sometimes, when people have an experience that conflicts with their beliefs, they will cling to those beliefs, even if it means suppressing the experience. Psychologist Leon's theory of cognitive dissonance can help us explain this behavior. This theory was formulated in 1957. It suggests that the conflict between our beliefs and reality can be so stressful that we are willing to distort our view of reality so that it can continue to include our beliefs. He first began to formulate this theory after conducting some research on a group that believed that the end of the world was rapidly approaching and that only a select few would be saved by a spacecraft. But when the alleged date passed without the end of the world occurring, far from abandoning their beliefs, the cult has realigned reality with their worldview, choosing to believe that their powerful meditation has prevented the end of the world altogether. Although this is true for everyone, we may not do it consciously, but once we trust someone or make a decision that the world works a certain way, we often resist all evidence that disproves the beliefs we have chosen. The occupiers, in turn, use this to boost our trust in them and make us more easily captured. Chapter 7: What about reputation? Let's pretend for a moment that you're a detective. You've just solved a big case and received a big promotion that has led to you being declared a hero of the city. That is, until a rookie officer approaches you with a clue to the key details you overlooked. Discovering this information could completely change the outcome of the case. The accused person could be released, and you will definitely lose a promotion. But the young officer has a solution. As long as you promote him, he will not share this information. Would you do it according to the results of a survey that interviewed people who made this assumption? You probably won't, because personal reputation is one of the most valuable aspects of our identity, and we're reluctant to damage it. Study of the World of Interpretation, and in Tone, 1997. It revealed that 65% of all conversations revolve around idle chatter, more than almost any other topic. We are concerned with how others act, how we act, and what others think about it, revealing that our reputation is one of the biggest concerns in our lives. A good reputation is also essentially a shortcut to earning people's trust, even if they don't know them personally. This is why they can be a commodity. Social value. It can also be a great tool for scammers. As evidenced by scams from 1915, around this time, a rumor began that Queen Elizabeth had an illegitimate son with Sir Francis Drake, and that a descendant of this son was now fighting a legal battle to recover money stolen from a ship in the 16th century. Camera, promising potential investors that anyone who paid to cover the legal fees would receive a share of the inheritance once it was recovered. This possibility attracted more than 70,000 investors. However, when the promised investment was never returned, none of the 70,000 victims spoke. Why? Because everyone was afraid of being considered a fool for falling into this scheme, and feared losing his reputation. Conclusion: trust fraudsters are everywhere, and none of us are immune to them, but this does not make us weak and unintelligent, and this does not mean that we should try to suppress the qualities that make us easy prey, such as generosity, kindness, and willingness to trust, but it does mean that we must be smart and develop awareness of our blind spots, so we can identify aspects of personality that scammers might take advantage of. You were with a summary of the book The Trust Game by Maria Kornikova, which I presented to you.